Spidey hat on, and that's for a reason you'll see. But, you know, if this isn't your first video here, you probably know I really like books. I'm not really actively reading a lot at the moment, but I go through really active reading spurts of a few months to a year at a time, where I will devour dozens of books within months. And graphic novels are a format I absolutely adore, partly because the topics and the stories are so diverse. There's comics on everything from history to superheroes to cultural stuff to, like, everything, fantasy. And the visuals just really add to these stories and flesh them out into 3D. Like, you know, I've even got an old Superman in sealed packaging. It is an issue from my birth year. It is exactly 6 months younger than me. Anyway, that said, a lot of comic book fans obviously know Marvel and really enjoy Marvel stories, but I realize when I talk to other Marvel fans that a lot of them, even Canadians, seem to either forget or be completely unaware of Alpha Flight, and, like, they were basically the X-Men of Canada. And because it's Rezvember, aka Heritage Month, I figured I'd take this moment to remind you of the gold that was Shaman, or Dr. Michael Twoyoungmen, aka Indigenous superhero who has been in print for nearly 50 years.
Grandpa, tell me about them good old days.
Okay, so the good Dr. Twoyoungmen first appears in the in the Uncanny X-Men series by Marvel in 1979. He was introduced in issue 120 by the creator John Byrne. He hails from Alberta, and he is of the First Nation Tsuu T'Ina. Not familiar with Western region languages, so I'll put the name on the screen in case I mispronounced it. But anyway, his origin story is after the tragic death of both his grandfather and his wife on the same day. The doctor is absolutely grief-stricken, and this is mostly due to the fact that prior to his grandfather dying, he had rejected his grandfather's wishes for him to become his apprentice, because his grandfather had been a traditional medicine man and knew all the old Sarsi ways. But also, he was grief-stricken because he was a doctor, trained and educated in modern European medicine, and all of his schooling and doctoral knowledge had failed him in saving his wife from her illness. So he felt he had failed his grandfather by not embracing the old medicines, and he felt he had failed his wife by not being able to save her with new medicines. And this kind of grief and despair drove him to retreat to Banff National Park, into an isolated rural cabin in the bush. And while he was in that cabin, he receives both his grandfather's skull from his bodily remains, and also a vision. And this vision is what pushed him to embrace his grandfather's wishes and master the old Sarsi magic.
Back to yesterday, when the line between right and wrong didn't seem
Okay, so Alpha Flight. He becomes part of Alpha Flight several years after learning to master his medicine bag and the Sarsi magic and adopting the name and regalia of Shaman. And he assisted in the birth of Snowbird, another member of Alpha Flight. The Snowbird is basically a Manitou who is like half spirit, half human, born of a man and the Inuit goddess Nelvana, who, coincidentally, is another indigenous character who has been immortalized in graphic novel format as of Nelvana of the Northern Lights. It's an older series, like we're talking old back in the heyday of comics, 40s, 50s. Anyway, Shaman uses his magic and sorcery to bind Snowbird to the Earth realm. Because she's part spirit, she could have been lost between the realms. But he binds her to the earthly world and raises her. But as she's part goddess, like part divine, she doesn't age like an average human. She reaches like the age of 20 within a matter of several weeks, and then kind of stays there and is like immortal. And after he had raised her and she had reached her full maturity, the Alpha Flight founder Guardian, James Hudson, and his wife, who were trying to assemble a team of superhumans in Canada similar to the Avengers or the X-Men, they approach both Shaman and Snowbird and invite them to join the new group Alpha Flight, and the two accept the invitation, and so the initial group of Alpha Flight is formed.
Whoa, Grandpa, tell me about them good old days.
And the Doctor experiences a bit of a rebirth, and this is the result of a great fight against evil, which causes his daughter, who he had left behind in the past when his wife passed away, his daughter had found him, and they had gone into a great fight together, and as a result, she was killed, and he could not save her. And this new death, this new failure of his loved ones, like to protect them, obviously causes a crisis of faith, and again, he retreats. And also part of this crisis of faith is he loses some of his magical, like, knowledge and control, especially over his medicine bag, which he is no longer able to wield properly or control the powers of, which I will explain a little bit in the next section. But, he seeks healing by embarking on a vision quest, and during this quest, his grandfather's spirit visits him and teaches him a new, some new secrets of the old mysticism and the old Sarsi ways, teaches him magical things that he had not learned the first time, and part of this rebirth brings him to learn how to beseech the spirits of nature and the life essence of the earth around him for aid, and he also receives a staff and an eagle helm that allow him to transform his shape.
Everything is changing fast. Oh, we call it progress.
Okay, and some fun facts. He has quite a few powers, like I said. His magic bag is one of them, but his powers include the ability to astral project, the ability to manifest mystic bolts, healing powers, or ability to cause people to sleep, as well as create illusions or visual trickery. He can levitate. His medicine bag, like I said, carries a pocket dimension or like another realm within it. So he is able to, as part of his mastery of this medicine bag, he can literally reach into his medicine bag and just, like, imagine I reached into here and, like, pulled out anything. Anything. Literally, like, man could be starving and pull out a steak. Man could be in a fight and pull out a knife. Man could be bored and pull out a Game Boy. Anything. And, also, like I said, he can call upon the spirits to help him carry out his will and aid him, but he cannot force them to do anything. He can only ask them. He can communicate with them, and because he is a respectful person, they are likely to help him, but he can't force them. And also, he is a very intelligent character who, like I said, is a master of both modern European medicine as well as the old shamanistic ways. And he is known as a few other names, such as the Binder of Spirits, the Breaker of Dark Spells, and the Promised One. Or there is a spirit that has possessed both him and his daughter, called Talisman, who is like a negative energy. And as Talisman, the powers include a vast magical ability, the power to manipulate human beings, communicate with spirits, and command them against their will. Unlike Shaman, who can only beseech the spirits to help him, Talisman can literally bind them and force them to do things against their will. And a couple other fun facts. He has appeared in the classic Marvel figure collection from Eagle Moss Publications, as well as many other merch lineups and memorabilia products, and has collaborated with many other mainstream Marvel characters in the Alpha Flight team-up, such as Spidey. Yeah, Spider-Man, and it has come to Canada in quite a few comic books. I remember I got one when I was a kid that was literally, like, part of it was about bike safety or whatever, but it was also, like, Spider-Man at the Calgary Stampede. And, like, I can't remember who the bad guy was, but, like, something happened at the Calgary Stampede, and Spider-Man happened to be there, and then the Alpha Flight people came and helped, too. So, yeah, that was pretty badass, because Spider-Man's another favorite. Okay, so, this Rezvember, let's remember the great superhero, Dr. Michael Twoyoungmen, aka Shaman. And, you know, in a world that lacks diverse representation, Shaman is a breath of fresh air. I stumbled upon the Alpha Flight comics as a young mid-teens in the Midland Public Library. I devoured all 15 volumes that they had. They had several series, whatever, of Alpha Flight things that were lumped into volumes, and there was something like 15 different issues they had on their shelf, and I read all of them. Loved every single one. So, you know, before you run off to go and try and look up those issues and order them, make sure you subscribe, and I will link my PayPal if you want to help me maybe support my reading habit or some other stuff, or help me support some native creators. And, that's it. Stay tuned for the end screens, and stay tuned for more Rezvember content.
We call it progress, but I just don't know. Oh, Grandpa, let's wander back into the past.